Welcome to the Startup Grind.
My name is Stefan, this is Ivan. Ivan Bjelajac is the COO of Devana Technologies. This company is most known for its product called Managed WP, and they're one of the pioneers here at our startup scene, and they're with us for about 5 years, if I'm correct, yeah?
Yes.
So welcome, Ivan. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to the guys from the Startup Grind and Impact Hub for organizing all of this. I tend to have a lot of chances to be an icebreaker when it comes to these events and to be the first to speak. So I hope this will be interesting to all of you, and thank you for showing up in this large number.
Cool. The standard question number one is we would like to know something about your background. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
Well, I'm born here in Belgrade, and this is where I grew up. I'm basically a washed up engineer. What does that mean? It means that I used to be an engineer basically for around 10 years, and in the last 4 years or so with the Devana and other companies, I went a little bit more to the business side of things. There are a lot of better people coming along dealing with technology, and I think that with these 10 years behind me, I spent a lot of myself when it comes to building new things, when it comes to hands-on work. So right now I'm mostly into product development and business development and running the company as a whole, but a bit less into engineering and hands-on jobs.
Cool. So tell us, what was your first job? What was your first gig?
Well, when it comes to, it depends on what you look at it. The first time I made money because of the things that I do today was maybe when I was 15 or 16. I programmed a small application that it was some sort of a really small financial software that was used to calculate some bank expenses. But my first full-time job was actually in BS Processor when I was 19, and I started working there as a system engineer. I was there for a little bit over a year, and it was an interesting experience in terms that I met some of the people that I even work with today through those times in the BS Processor, and I even started some of the companies 10 years later with those people also.
Cool. Tell me, was that first step a success or a failure?
Well, it was a success when it comes to that I was 16 years old and I'd actually earned money from it. In terms, I was I was 16. I worked on that for maybe around 2 months, and I got paid around 3,000 maybe Deutsche Marks back then.
For those 2 months?
Yes, for those 2 months.
Yeah,
so
sounds way above Serbian average.
Well, it was way above Serbian average at the time, and it was way above average in general. But yes, it was done for for a guy from Belgium that needed it. He ran a company that basically did the bookkeeping, and it was just a small Visual Basic program then. But the reason why it needed to be done that way was something that he was willing to pay, and it was the first time I actually built something commercially, and I got that money, and I liked it.
How did you feel? You were 16, you made a lot of money, you built something.
I think it was more about the fact that I built something. I couldn't, I couldn't wage that money against any other money because I didn't have any regular income. So I couldn't say if it. I knew it was a lot, basically, of course, but for that time. But I couldn't wage it against anything. So I think it was mostly about, I'm second year of high school. And I actually made something that someone is using somewhere to calculate costs and pay mortgage or whatever at that point. And I think that was what hooked me. So that was the main reason I continued working with computers. But and at that time, it was unusual for someone 16-year-old to do something like that. And right now I'm 33 and we have a company of 25 people where I am one of the oldest people there. Around 70% people that work in Devana are born between 1995 and 1989.
So there's a lot of young people among them.
Yes, and the time that this happened was in year 2000, I think. So, those guys were 5 years old then. So it's
these days entrepreneurship is quite popular, I would say. But back then it was probably, I don't know, especially the tech entrepreneurs, I think they weren't really cool as today.
Well, we weren't cool at all. That's the first thing. I don't think there was any entrepreneurship as such. The word came later. In terms that no one really propagated the innovation movement in that way. In the 90s, I think that you can even find quotes from people that all ideas are probably used up already, and then each time a new thing came along, it started something else that was great, and we're here today, I spent a year maybe without a smartphone. I bought one a month ago again, but I spent a year without a smartphone and 3 months without a phone at all. And it made me remember, some things when you actually need to talk to people and agree on the time and the place you're going to meet instead of.
So how do you like it better, without the phone or with it?
The phone doesn't matter really. I think that the problems are different. In the 90s, you could use technology a lot to solve a lot of your problems. And you actually needed to invest time to get that technology. And now I think you need to invest time in order to get away from the technology. So the perspective is a bit different. In terms that it was a lot easier to go offline and disappear for a while and think about yourself, your life, your products, the business you want to run in the 90s, and now it's a lot harder to just step away from everything and become unavailable. In the 90s, as I was a kid, it's not just the socialism, etc., but when you didn't go to work on weekends, it was basically almost a sacrilege to work on a weekend. And I understand it's part of the social culture, but it became so easy to work from home now. So people just wake up on a Saturday morning and they go and type emails. So it's a little harder to just get away from the business.
Yeah. So how did your journey look like? The part where you mentioned you were 16, you built some app, and after that, what was the road from that position to the moment when you got into Devana, or at that moment it was Prelec Media?
Yes. It didn't have anything to do with technology and entrepreneurship at all. In terms that what I did and what a lot of us did and what some of the people I see here did, we played video games. And that was basically most of the things that we did. We went out to get drunk and we played video games, and those were our days. And I actually know a lot of people from that time. It's been 15 years that we were basically gamers. And we also, except for gaming itself, we also started organizing some tournaments. We did a CPL in Serbia, we did World Cyber Games qualifications here, and some other major tournaments that are international. You know, we brought them here, like you brought Startup Grind, we were able to bring some gaming competitions. And I would say I held a job for all of that time, from 19 of course onwards, a full-time job, but my first probably steps when it comes to actually trying to organize people and do something were either games or organizations based around video games. And then I was, as I said, in BS Processor for a year. I went to a couple of other companies, some ISPs in Serbia for 2 years, and in one gaming only company, and ran an admin company, and I got myself a couple of certificates when it comes to Linux, and later even for networking. But in general, I would say that we played video games and organized tournaments, and this admin stuff and engineering came as a means to support yourself. And we did that for a few years, and then when I was 23, I realized I might try college, and so I stopped working, and I spent 2 years as basically a front-end developer, freelancer. And that was the time when CSS was starting, you know. So when I learned to build sites when I was maybe 18, you just had HTML and tables, and there was trying to be a front-end developer, which basically involved just a little bit of JavaScript and mostly, you know, learning CSS and doing those things that are just something natural today. And I spent 2 years freelancing when it comes to server administration and front-end development, and then I got a job at Comtrade. I was there for 3 months, and then I ran away. And after that, I think the journey probably really starts after that. It was 2008, and I came to a hosting provider, which is now called Adria Host. It's one of the largest hosting providers in Serbia now. It was a small company then. It's still a relatively small company, but when it comes to clients, it has a lot of really big clients now. And the next 2 years I spent building a web hosting business, basically, and supporting some of their other you know, things. And after 1 year, I became some sort of a hosting director, and I was in charge of a team that was in charge of that hosting. And then in 2010, I accepted the job from First Serve, which is now 6 Degrees Group. It's one of the largest web hosting and software as a service companies in the UK. And I was there for almost 3 years. We basically managed a lot of, let's say, top-notch companies when it comes to UK hosting business. A lot of their banks and a lot of their, let's say, GPS companies, etc., etc. You know, basically system-critical services. And I think that the greatest knowledge that I gained when it comes to engineering came from that, because we had a chance to work with a lot of equipment which was really expensive for Serbia back then, and I did it by telecommuting. And I did it for 4 days a week, and I had a 3-day weekend, but during those 3 days I had also a chance to experiment things of my own, and then I started a company that later became Cybernet, and I think that's maybe the entrepreneurial start. But when it comes to engineering, the story probably, you know, came from Adria Host and then First Serve.
Yeah. So there's a lot of engineering in the background. What about, so you've built an app when you were 16, but so we could call that your first venture or first like try. But what was the first leap that you've taken, but a serious try, serious venture.
Well, let's put it like this. I've spent some years building things for other people, basically, or maintaining them. And after that, we wanted to start and build our own products. And I think that the greatest leap was probably trying. You know, I was set when it comes to income. I worked in First Serve. I had 4 days of work and then 3 days of rest, and I had a really good salary for Serbian conditions. And I thought I could either try and do that for, I can say the rest of my life, but for a long time, or I can invest time and try to really do something else. And we tried, basically we created some sort of a digital agency, but it was more of a solution provider, where either I did some solutions for people that needed them with some friends when it comes to IT, or we tried to find someone and basically try to be a consultancy group in some sort. And that business, I can't really call it that successful because it earned money, but that money wasn't really anything that was big enough for me to, let's say, I start really changing my lifestyle or things around me. And the products that we built, we didn't spend enough time on them. Because even though I invested some of my own money, you know, by working for others, and the company made money of its own, I was always afraid to stop having that connection. That was the reason that the money kept coming in, and I always was afraid to stop having a regular job and those things. And I think that the greatest leap maybe came when we were able to build a couple of products, and some of them failed, and some of the people here I know worked on those products that failed, and some people that are here and I see them worked on the 2 products that actually worked. And at some point, those 2 products that worked, I came to the question about the exit, you know, and I sold both products, and there was also one live that we disbanded. And then it was just agency work that was left. And when it was just agency work, it started being a bit boring. And First Serve got sold to 6 Degrees Group. I was thinking about leaving. So I was unhappy at the time. I quit First Serve. I decided I'm just going to, you know, run things on their own. And we did that for a while. And after that, I got a call from Vladimir Prelovac, who started Prelovac Media and whose idea was basically manage WP. They already created a product and it had a lot of success, and he needed someone to run the customer experience team. So I went there, and I was there running the customer experience team for a year. And First Serve experience helped a lot there. Because in First Serve we were, you know, used to running system critical business things, and in the industry where managed WP operates, you expect people to solve your problem within around 20 hours, because that is the, let's say, that is the norm in that business. And we tried doing the things the way that First Serve did it with banks and other large clients. So right now you get a response from a human being, and actually something done within 20-30 minutes. So it was 20 hours versus 20-30 minutes, and we got there maybe in 6 months' time. And that was one of the differentiators for you know, both myself in the company and for the company itself. It's a big part of its brand now. So after doing that job as head of customer experience for a year, I moved on to be Chief Operations Officer in the company, and I'm doing that for almost 3 years now, and I would say that the biggest I can't say that it's one leap, but basically each time I changed jobs, I was already in a relatively good position. So I could have just kept that previous job because the job I had in Adria Host was good in general, and the job I had after that in First Serve was good. And when I decided to sell my own company and become part of Devana, that company was also making money, and we were able to stay afloat. So that was the ongoing
I
theme.
would like to stop you there because reading your emails, I noticed that you have a quote that says, don't worry, it says, don't be afraid to sacrifice the good
To go for the great.
Yeah,
Yes.
for the great. So would you like to share your view on that quote?
Well, as I just said, most times in my life, they say that one door needs to close in order for the other to open, but I don't think that's actually necessarily true, because if the only time you want to change something is because you don't have the old thing anymore, then you just had to do it, and you were basically forced into that decision. But I think that one of the biggest, regrets and the challenges that people make in general, have in general, is basically that they are already set in something that is okay to them, and people in general are more afraid to lose something than they want to, than they aspire to gain something. So I think that's the reason I remind myself with that quote, that the next step could be anything, and that if you don't try it, it's probably, you'll just never know.
Yeah. So you've talked a lot about engineering, hosting, and similar stuff. Today you're a COO, so I bet your day looks a lot different now than 10 years ago.
I was very organized 6 or 7 years ago when it comes to actually performing on the job. 90% of my work was hands-on, engineering stuff, and I tried to estimate everything and to, work in specific time frames. And now the good thing now is that I don't actually have to do that. But the bad thing is I can't even do it anymore because a lot of things are changing all the time, and each day when I come to work there is a completely different set of challenges. So I would say that we are a creative company in terms that we try to build our own products, and we don't do any outsource work. So when you have that creative freedom in a way, it's not just me. A lot of people, there are 20 people and more there that are experimenting on something every day. So they just all influence you with something, and you can't organize your day at all. And I can't say that I have an average day, in Devana at any point, because every day is completely different, and some of those days are extremely frustrating, and sometimes you're very happy, but I usually go to the company in the morning and I have no idea what I will be working on that day. So that's an interesting position to be in. It's not always nice, sometimes it is, but I would say that during this time we didn't lose the processes. We have a lot of processes, but I must say that I definitely lost any stability when it comes, to organizing my times and things like this. Actually, I think the only time when I actually know I'm going to do something is when I have something scheduled, like this talk today.
Yeah. I guess many people here have an engineering background and are probably in the phase of transitioning to the business side. I guess you've gone through that. So how did this look for you?
It came natural. It's like it was almost a physical process. It's like, you know, when you get older in general. In terms that after working on engineering tasks for 10 years, I started, you know, to have colleagues around me that are much younger and much better than me in that. And also learning new things each day. I can't say it stopped interesting me, but when it comes to technology, I didn't really want to keep up with everything like when I was 25. And I was very interested in the business part of things because, you know, when you start working as an engineer, you just want to make something work. And 10 years later, I think that you mostly want to know why does it work and why do people need this working at all. So it was a bit like growing up. When I was, a couple of years ago, I actually thought that I was a lot smarter when I was 20. Because I was, you know, it was easier for me to focus, and I had a lot stronger opinions about things when I was 20. And then later, you know, I went to a little bit of more a gray zone. You know, it might be good, but it might be not. So I thought that maybe I lost the edge a little bit, and then I realized that it wasn't because of that. It was mostly because when I was 20, I was really stupid and I only understood a couple of things, and I dealt with the knowledge that I had. So I think it's usually like that. You know, the more you learn, the more you actually learn that the things that you thought were true aren't, and you aren't always really able to change them with any new knowledge. You just know that it's not like that. So I think that's why now I learn every day in a way, because I don't hold to positions and opinions for too long now.
In your opinion, you just mentioned, I'll quote, you were stupid when you were 20. So in your opinion, what's the right time to start working on a startup or something?
As soon as you can. And it's not, startup is a buzzword like entrepreneurship. It's not working, you know, in a startup. It's, you know, just try to get some real experience, real life experience, and go into it as soon as you can. If you are, you know, a kid in high school that wants to learn to program, start programming now. And if you are already a programmer and want to go into the business side of things, try doing it right now, today, tomorrow. You know, you don't have to really wait for the next promotion or to try to structure your life to go that way. You know, try doing it now, because the real reason is that you might learn a lot, both about the subject that you're dealing with and about yourself, but mostly that there is a great thing there. If you try it and you don't like it, you have time to quit before you invested so much time into those things. I said we have a lot of really young people in the company, and they're all really great, but a lot of them dropped out of college. I'm not really saying that I support that, but I'm going to say that I support people to try actually doing the job before they sign up for any college. I went to college when I was 23, and I was already, you know, I already had 4 years of work experience behind me. And it was both a lot easier for me to learn when I was there, because I had specific questions that I wanted answered in school, and I never liked school very much, so you know, we have to get that out of the way. But the thing was that I really was motivated because of those 4 years of work to learn new things and to actually understand the concept behind some of those things. And the college is great for that. If you are really sure you want to go there, and if you have some good professors, and I had a chance to have 3 or 4 really great professors from the other mediocre ones, but I had 3 or 4 of them that were really good, and they taught me a lot. But I wouldn't understand it really when I was 19. Not that I couldn't understand the engineering and the math behind it, but I'm completely sure that I wouldn't invest the same time, and I wouldn't have the same interest into learning those things if I didn't do that job for 4 years before going there. So, and when I think about it, what would have happened if I chose, an economics school and signed up when I was 19? I would probably find out that I don't want to be an economist when I'm 23 or 24. And I think that's college, but it's like that for most things in life. If you try them and you see right away that you don't like anything, you always have time to stop. So it's a good thing to try and just learn right there and then and get it out of your system.
Cool. When it comes to product development, I would like to know what is, in your opinion, the key to the success of Managed WP?
Managed WP is a bit specific because it came to an industry that needed a product of that kind, but didn't really know that it needs it. We as a company, Devana, built a product that is basically a single sign-on dashboard for WordPress websites. And that means that you can use our software, which is a software as a service. It's a website where you log in and add your WordPress websites, and you can manage them all from that one place. And the thing was that, first of all, it was the first product of its kind, so we were able to become a market leader. And the second thing about the reason for the success is that it had a relatively big name behind it. Because I mentioned Vladimir Prelolac, who started the company, he was recognized back then as one of the top 10 WordPress developers of that time. And even now, if you look at those lists from those years, you will find him listed in, I think it was maybe around 7th or 8th place when it comes to the list of most downloaded WordPress plugins, etc. And that was before Managed WP. He had maybe around 20 WordPress plugins, and he did a lot of consultancy work for some major companies that worked with WordPress. And he actually wrote and published he basically wrote and published with Pact Publishing the first book about developing WordPress plugins. So the thing that WordPress was relatively young, that he was the first WordPress book author actually, and that he spent a couple of years, 3 or 4 of them actually, doing SEO and WordPress and development consulting work for a lot of big brands. He was known enough that when we started promoting the product, we basically had a list of 6,000 potential customers that were emailed right away. And there were around 10,000 people using it in beta. And after the beta, which is when I came and when we started actually charging for the product, and I came a couple of months after that, the first day we had around $100,000 in sales. And those were mostly yearly subscriptions done from the people that were already using it for around 6 months in the beta period. And now, after all of this time, it's a relatively big business in terms that we manage well, actually people that use ManageWP manage around 300,000 websites through this product. There are around 7,000 paid users of the product, and there are around 100,000 registered accounts. And you have some really big names when it comes, to companies that are behind that, both in the publishing world and when it comes to some big US universities, etc., etc. So it came a long way. It's not the only company that's doing this right now.
Yeah, so
There are maybe 15 of them
how
now,
do you still
but we were
compete
first.
with them? How are you different than them?
That's a good question. The thing is that I would say that there are actually two main reasons we are still, on top of our game. And one reason is that most of the competition just copied the product and tried to copy the engineering behind it. And after copying the product, they just set their prices lower. And the only differentiator between us and them in those terms is that they have a copy that is in most cases not as good as the original, and they just charge less money. And the thing that we earn more money allowed us to both approach the WordPress community more, and also to take care of our customers better. Because that's actually the second thing, and that's the support I mentioned. Most of those companies either don't offer any support, or they offer some sort of unguaranteed help. And we basically guarantee people with, actually helping them and probably solving their issues within the first hour. So, when it comes to that situation, when you have people not responding or responding after 20 hours or a couple of days, and you have a company that has a 24/7 rotation of people answering emails and is involved in the community, then most people, just choose the business that seems more approachable.
So would you say that the human factor is still very important?
It's probably the only important factor, except for the fact that we were the first, and that a lot of people still, just tie WordPress management to the ManageWP brand. So the name recognition is definitely up there, but the human factor and the thing that we talk to these people all the time and answer their questions and their support calls and everything. I think that's the main reason why all these companies stay with us, even though there is cheaper competition.
Tell me, over the years, you guys had a lot of projects, and many of them were labeled as failures. So how did they end up like that, and what did you guys learn from them?
Well, first of all, we never wanted to be just a WordPress company. I would like to put that out there in terms that Devana is more of an innovations company than a WordPress company, although most of our money actually comes from WordPress. But we made a lot of mistakes. Basically, I already mentioned that a lot of us used to play video games, so we started a gaming business. We spent maybe around $120,000 on that startup in the first year, and we achieved a steady amount of revenue of $9 per month, which is still incoming, and we don't do that anymore. We discontinued the gaming program 2 years ago, but we still get around $9 per month from that. So in 100 years, maybe we will become profitable with that product. And the main issue there was that we had no reach, and we didn't focus enough on that business in order for it to succeed. And I think that most of the products that failed either had no market, or didn't have enough focus, from people leading the company for them to actually become successful. And now we built a small, let's say, a lab, and it's we bought an office space in Knez Mihajlova, and we moved all our innovations there. Because the main issue is when you have a core business and a product that's earning you money and paying your bills, and then you're trying to build other businesses on the side, is that you are never actually focused on those businesses. You might spend a month or two really working on them, but at the same moment that when a problem of some sort or arises, or when a competitor creates a new feature and you want to do something about that, you are going to go back to your core business. And that was the main issue, I think. None of these products really had a chance because they were never completely in company's focus.
Okay. So when I mentioned failures, I would also like to ask you about the mistakes, your personal mistakes that you've made these years. So which ones would you like highlight?
I think that most of my mistakes were about not quitting something when I should have done it. I think I tend to be a little too persistent, in some things, and it really sometimes takes a lot of time for me to realize that this is not something I should be working on. So I would say that the biggest mistake was not letting go of some things for a really long time. And I think my biggest mistakes are just, up there ahead, and they're just going to come. So I didn't have any catastrophic ones. The only thing that I would have probably changed is that I would have probably stopped working on outsourced projects a lot before I did, and started doing my own things earlier. So it's more of a regret than a mistake I'm regretting, because I think I learned from most of the times when we actually tried to build something and failed. But the things that really bother me are the ones that I don't know about. You mentioned failed products and failed projects, and there are a lot of those where even now I just think that if I had more time to invest in some of those, both in Devana and outside of Devana, they would have turned out better. So I think the lost time is what bothers me the most.
Yeah, but then again, if you learn something for the time spent.
Well, yes, but it's an expensive lesson. There are a lot of things that I earned from my failures that I now wish I didn't know at all. So I would prefer not knowing than failing. And I think that statistically, when you are doing something for the first time, and when you're doing something in which you failed before, you actually have a pretty similar chance of success. So that's something I noticed. When you're doing something that you already did successfully before, then you're great. It's going well. But if you already failed, and if you haven't tried, you're not really that far off, because it's not just about why you failed. I think the more important question is when you succeed, why you succeeded. The reason I'm saying this is that most companies, I think, when they have actually, they learn a lot from their failures, and they know why they failed in those cases. But then even when they have one big success, they are not sure why they actually had that success. And then when they try to replicate it, they can't, because they're not sure what happened the first time. So I would personally, prefer learning from my successes than from my failures. I think it's both better when it comes to yourself, and it's definitely more fun, and it's definitely more, financially lucrative to learn from your successes than from your failures.
Definitely. Cool. That's a cool look at it. So, what was your biggest success until now?
That's a good question, but let's say I had a really, and this is not a cliche, I had a really a lot of luck to work with some amazing people. So I can say that I had success with some of my companies that and the products that were built and sold, and that I had success with that customer experience that we built in Devana when it comes to support, because it wasn't me having that success, it was really a lot of different great people putting in the work in order to get there. So I think that probably the thing that I'm most proud of and learned most is that now in this company, and if I ever leave, I will take that with me in terms that I will do it the same way. But now in this company, in Devana, we have a really strict selection process when it comes to actually hiring people. And I think that that's the biggest success in terms that I now don't really have to work with people that I don't want to work with. So I have enough contacts and enough knowledge and enough integrity in the industry I'm in, that I can basically, I already know some of the best people, and when we want to do something, I have a chance to work with them. I think it's more important, that one success when it comes to, a customer support metric, or earning an amount of money, or having a big exit and selling the product. I think it's most about, it's not what you know, it's who you know in the end. And I really know some great people now that I can count on when I want to have something achieved.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of work to be done, and I guess you probably spend a lot of time working. So, what was your let's say happiest moment professionally speaking, and what was your biggest sacrifice on the road?
Well, I would say that the happiest moment was probably, when the happiest moment was probably when I saw a company that was really small grow into something successful, because there was a lot of fear before that, and in the end, we were able to create a stable business. So it's not about just launching a product now. It's more about creating a business that support a number of people, around 25 right now in Devana, and I can put a finger on one specific moment. I think it was the entire journey, in a way, and. When it comes to those moments and those experiences, I think that the biggest sacrifice was actually time. I had a lot of days, and I still have them, where we are working 15 hours a day, and I would say that 10 or more hours a day is still standard. So right now, if I could change anything in those terms and revert to something that was sacrificed, it's a little more time for people around me, and not just the co-workers, although I'm friends with most of them, but just having more time to do some other things. I still get to travel a lot, both privately and both professionally, and I visited a lot of different countries, but I think that the biggest sacrifice is that you wake up thinking about your business and your work, and you go to sleep thinking about that. So even when you're not doing any hands-on work, you are still invested in that, and that can really take a toll on you. So I think that that's something probably I'm going to even change in the future. I don't want to spend 10 more hours and 10 more hours in the office anymore. I think I'm too old for that now.
And maybe if, let's say, somehow Devana disappeared tomorrow, what would you do? What would you start working on?
Probably some sort of an outsourced project management company or product development company, but not a digital agency, but something that is really focused on building new products each time. Maybe working with startups that are just starting up and doing something like that. Because I like that MVP stage. I like when you are building something and it's still in the proof of concept stage, and when you are still don't know if it's going to work or not actually. So I would like to keep doing that for a long time. I wouldn't really want to have one product and then just do that forever.
Okay. I would like to ask just a few more questions, and then there will be some from the public. What in your opinion are, because you mentioned that you like the phase of hacking a prototype, so what are the 3 most common mistakes that startups make today?
I think that the most common mistake is probably falling in love with the idea too much, because you have 10 ideas every day, but probably none of them are actually good. And a lot of times, people have a problem with actually balancing out what they call their product vision and what is actually needed. So that's one thing. And the other thing is probably, let's say, people tend to try and get money from the investors, and they try to do it too soon. They try to go for seed investments. They try to just get some money there because first of all, they think that the company is going to fail if it doesn't get that. And the second thing is that they are afraid that they're going to spend their own money or whatever. And all of the products I worked on were bootstrapped. We never raised an investment for any of them. And I think that actually helped us, because that is usually something that draws attention from the product into something completely different. And talking to investors, agreeing on terms, etc., takes a lot of time. And it can really change what your business is. And the third thing is probably related to that. People tend to hire, salespeople and think about marketing and those things even before they know who the customer is and what are they actually selling. So, salaries tend to build up really fast for people you don't really need anymore. And then when you have a bunch of people that you don't really need right now, but they're there and you already built your team, etc., they want to start doing their work right away. Cool. And just one thing, there is actually a problem there, because they don't really have a product there, but they invested their time and energy and probably create the entire marketing plan and everything, and start talking to people about something that doesn't exist and it's going to be changed. So you have an incredible amount of not just wasted time, but wasted work and resources with no tangible benefits.
Okay, that's great. We're kind of sort of out of time. So we'll end with this question. What is the most important aspect of entrepreneurship that isn't really talked about that much nowadays, in your opinion?
Well, I actually think that entrepreneurship is almost talked about too much. And people do talk a lot about actually building the product a lot. But I think that entrepreneurship and startups went into this financial and investment direction when it comes to mainstream media. So I think that the entire focus should, if possible, be shifted to actually building the products and building the teams that are going to build those products. You know, you can read a lot about building products and hiring, but I think that you actually can find more advice about finding investors, and you read, at least you read it you read mostly that in the news. And the companies that are getting the big investments don't have to be the ones that have the best products. And it doesn't. The fact that someone got an investment of a couple of $1 million or even $100 million doesn't really mean that that business is not going to be disrupted in a couple of years. So the only thing that really keeps startups and entrepreneurship going are innovations, and they're really completely tied to actually building and executing the products, not about ideas and finances and everything, but they're centered around what your product is and how you're going to execute it.
Cool, thank you, Ivan.